No, this one.
Y'all cool if I do Donald Trump impression?
No,
Why not?
because
Oh, that's not funny, Andy.
I'm adding the coaches for this one. I don't care. I do it.
Do it. Just put it everywhere. International love. Come on now. It's international love.
Yo, what's up, guys? Hunter here. I'm here to do season 4 of the EBA's power rankings.
Okay, we'll put it just there. All right. What is up, everyone? It is Sin and Sage here for EBA Season 4 Power Rankings. We'll be going through our rankings of the coaches' drafts and why we ranked them where we did, and displaying their team while we talk about it. So, without further ado, we'll get into our first team here, which, if I can navigate this, is the Cydia. So the main reason why we put the Cydia last is the team is a super offensive base team that doesn't synergize super well. He has the makings of like a rain team, but he also has the makings of like a sun team, and it just doesn't flesh together super well. Fluttermane isn't that good of an Uber, um, especially a second overall Uber pick. Urshifu Rapid is a great Terra captain, but like the Aloe doesn't do much for the team. Skarmory doesn't do much for the team. It's kind of just in a spot where it doesn't have too much going for it. Um, Another big thing is like he kind of lacks a good special wall. He has Skyrim who can hold down the fort physically a lot of the time. Same with Aloe, but then like on the special side, your fattest special monster are gonna be your Fluttermane and your Chi-Yu. Um, but they only have good special defense stats. They don't have great HP stats, so you can't really rely on them to take hits all that well. Um, they can take them somewhat well, but not the greatest. We just think that like some of it's a little redundant. Like bundle wasn't super needed here. We would have been nice to see him get a better mon to fit a team over bundle, and then maybe get another better mon to go over the Ardo spot or something along those lines. Um, that's my main uh like thoughts on the team. If Sage, if you wanna add anything to this.
No, I agree. If I was a Cydia, I'd probably drop bundle and get rid of Skarm and Ariados. That's a lot of points to pick up something better. And I'm gonna be real too. I would drop Aloe too. I'm a big Aloe hater. I don't think it's ever good.
Yeah, we think Aloe is not the greatest. Alright. Ready to move into our 13th pick. We have Iono here. Let Sage do talking for this one.
Yeah. So Iona, really the main thing with their team that I noticed is there's some mods that I don't think mesh super well. It's kind of like we said about the Cydia. And that's going to be the theme of this. There's a lot of really good teams, a lot of really good mods drafted, especially with it being an Uber format. Everyone automatically gets one busted guy, right? And it's pretty easy to like build a broken core around that. And I think they got base Deoxys. I'm not like super sold on it, but it's definitely a good Uber. Terra Enamoris is really good. I didn't like the round 3 Dawn fan. I don't think spin is important enough to round 3 that mon by any means. Gouging Fire doesn't really fit here a ton. It's a powerful offensive threat. I like Crown. I'm a fan of Crown always. I don't really like Manaphy in Gen 9, to be honest, and I don't think it fits here a ton. I guess it's your 100 speed tier, but in general, it doesn't really have a lot of support, and it doesn't really do a lot to support anything else. There's better bulky water options that can add more to the team. Like, for example, they could have got Blastoise and had their bulky water and not drafted round 3 Donphan. Um, I think Sinistra is a really great mon in Gen 9, so I like that pick. Ninetales Alola, I don't see what it does here except for Vel, but that's like some ladder stuff. It's not really, it doesn't work in draft as well. Bisharp's not a great mon, and then Grafia is also just not a great mon in general. It's not that Iona's team is just super bad or anything. It's a solid team with some good mons. It's just there were some picks that we weren't really a fan of, and think that they could have been replaced with better mons essentially. So that's why it's 13th. And if you want to add anything in, you can.
Sorry, I was muted. I think you covered all the main points. I definitely think they could have gone a better Uber over base Dio, as the appeal with the Deoxyses are they're super hard hitting, but they're frail. But Dio isn't nearly at to the level as Dio attack is, so it's kind of in a spot where it's super frail, but then it's hits as hard as a lot of the other Ubers, because it is, to put it bluntly, only 150 in each stat, which is a crazy thing to say. When we look at other Ubers that have like that attacking stat in 1 or greater, that can specialize at 1 and have stronger moves or multiple stab typings. Um, I think there were a bunch of couple things they could have like picked over Dio. Like Solgaleo and Dio go after, but I think both would have been a better pick than Dio is, as they're more versatile, not just locked into straight defensive, which I think a lot of these mons don't have too much versatility. So you will be seeing fairly similar sets most weeks. Um, but I think that's all I have to say about this team. So if we should be good to move on to the next one. And our next mon here will be Zachmander. So the thing with Zach Vander's team here is it is a super offensive team. It is HO of all the HOs. You have Rayquaza, Terra, Urshy Single, Palafin, Scizor, Ursula Blood Moon, all insane physical, or not, insane offensive threats. Then you have some things like Stream is it's not the greatest one in the world, but it does fit this team pretty well, as it does give it a super bulky backbone that can be tailored to a specific side in a week. If a team has a really good physical attacker, it'll take it pretty solidly, and then if they have a special attacker, you can put Screamtail in. Um, just as that like little pivot through the turns, not even to hold down the fort defensively, but just to be there, take the hits it needs to take, and then get out into your Palafin or your Rayquaza. Um, but then like the bottom Vikavolt isn't the greatest. Employon's not horrible. Flareon isn't that good. And then I'm personally a Gilmore hater. I don't think it's that great. Um, but like my real main concern is you will be seeing the top like 6, 7 most of the time, and majority of them are physical. You have your Rayquaza, Urshisingle, Palafin, and Sizzle are all mainly physical. Um, Rayquaza can run both, but it is a predominantly physical mon with Dragon Ascent, Outrage if needed, Earthquake, all on the physical side with DD and E-Speed. So you will be getting more out of the physical sets than you would the special. Um, so I think it's just kind of hard to justify running a special set most of the time, which ends up leaving you open to a super like def team. Even though you are an HO team, you will get out defense, I think, a decent bit of the time with having so much physical mons. That and then like the very little hazard control, with it only being Glim and Scizor not wanting to run Defog, and then Glamora just being kind of a fake removal. Every team has a Steel type. It is like one of the most important types in the game, and getting blocked by that is just not a good thing to have. So that definitely doesn't help. Um, but I think they could have used like their lower points better, moved some things around, got another hard special attacker, got another defensive piece. Um, that those are mainly my concerns. If you want to add anything,
No, I agree. I think that in general, this is a pretty powerful team. A lot of I think the main thing is it's just super physical. The only real special attacker here is Blood Moon. I'm not that scared of Glamora or Vikavolt, to be completely frank. And Blood Moon's extremely slow. I don't get the webs mode. You have your top four is all physical prio, and then your other offensive mon is a Blood Moon that's not going to outspeed most things in webs anyways. I think this team could drop Vika and Flareon, get a 10-point mon, and add a 1-pointer and be perfectly fine. And I think that there could be changes made outside of that as well to make it a little better. But it definitely is a solid team. This is just a stack season, so some people are ranked lower than they would have been in previous seasons, to be honest. Overall, it's not a bad team at all.
yeah, for sure, he definitely has a solid core that he could move some things around to build around better. And I think if he does do that, it will be a more threatening team in the builder without having to really. You're only really looking at Rayquaza to Ursaluna, and then you might look at Glim and Empoleon based on their matchup, but you will really be seeing the top six majority of the time, which is not that great, considering Ubers leagues where all the Ubers are extremely versatile and can be fit to go really hard into the top six, quite frankly. Um, I think we covered everything we want to on Zach Mander, so we can move over to number uh 11 here, which will be Mr. G. If you want to
Yeah,
take that away.
yeah, Mr. G's team. It's another case of having a solid team. And this just being a really stacked season. I'm just waiting on seeing the move over to it because I'm pulling it. I'm looking on on the stream
Yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
So he got a solid Uber in Magerna. I think I don't know if it was the best pick around, like pick three, to be honest. Um, I think there were better Ubers available at that point, but Magerna is still a fine pick. Don't get me wrong, great mon. I really love the top three here. I like Magerna, like Gliscor, like Greninja. They flow, man. Like they go together. But then he has Bax Caliber, Terra Thunder, Slow King, Serena, Infernape, Luna, and Arbok. In general, Arbok never does anything. It's your 3-pointer to round out your team. That's fine. I'm not a big fan of Ursaluna in draft. I mean, if that was the only ground available, fine, but you have a Gliscor, so you didn't really need it. I'm not the biggest fan of Infernape, to be honest. Serena, I think that if you're using Serena as your spinner, you might as well just not have a spinner because any week you bring Serena, and there's a better mon you could have brought. Essentially, I don't even think drafting low tier removals worth it. Just in my opinion. Some changes this team could make if they got rid of Serena, Luna, and Arbok. That's a lot of extra points to make changes. Slow King's fine here. NDT with Terra is great. Not a big fan of backs. And like I said, a lot of this is going to be nitpicky because the teams are really just solid. I would have probably loved to see a second guy here. I mean, you have Gliscor as the only rock setter. Well, Infernape sets rocks as well. But I feel like, Greninja and Mag can set spikes, but they're not going to the majority of the time. So it kind of limits Gliscor to being hazards most weeks. Gliscor's a great bomb, but it really can only do one thing at a time. A lot of people try to run this mon doing like 3 or 4 different things every week, and it just doesn't work out. But in general, my main complaints is just I don't feel like some of this stuff goes together. Like the top three with Dundee T is amazing, and then adding on like Ursa Luna and Serena, Bax Caliber, Arbok. I think that the points could be used a little better. In general, it's a really solid team.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna fix some audio things that's happening right now, real quick.
Good. Am I loud or am I quiet?
No, it's just some echoing going on. Should be fixed relatively soon. Okay, there we
Shout
go.
out
Should be
him
good.
for doing this league for the first time. We are happy to have him.
I think I fixed the issues. It was echoing. I had 2 sources picking them up. Apparently,
Bet.
we got that all fixed now though. Shout out Hearth for letting me know about that, by the way. But yeah,
Goat Hearth.
Mr. G's team. Um, I was kind of not paying attention trying to fix it, but I feel like a lot of the mons just won't be too useful. Like Arbok isn't that good. Serena is pretty bad. Especially as your soul spinner, so hazards will hurt this team a lot. With Thundy T taking the 25 for someone comes in, Bax taking 25. Things like Gliscorn not wanting to take the chip. Slowking doesn't want the chip. So you will be forced to boot a couple of your mons every week if you're going up against strong hazard team. But I think that's really the only main thing. Like K2 is a really good strong top 6, but I think after the or top 3, but I think after the top 3 you start to see a little bit of wavering in the strength. But all around it is a really solid team. Like if this team is bottom 4, that just shows you have some really good teams in the league. So moving on to number 10, moving into our new bracket here, we have Ducky. And for Ducky, we have a special guest.
What's up, y'all? So getting in with Ducky, former EBA champ from last season, being ranked the tank, just shows how competitive the teams actually are this season. So basically, the main issue we had with Ducky was Cyclizar being his only spinner. Like removal is quite weak, and Rock looks really good on against Ducky's team. Oh, he's got Ho Ho. Oh my god.
Hunter's ruining his debut here. Not looking good for this guy.
Yeah, this guy just shit the bed here in the big moment.
All right, hold up. Hold up. What a big moment. I'm back in a moment. I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking. I'm talking.
We would have
So
another
yeah,
special
of
guest, but he's busy drinking and driving, by the way.
Elhurst.
course he is. Shocker. No, back to Ducky. He's got Ho. Obviously, probably one of the best Ubers that were allowed in this season again. Obviously, with that coveted regenerate ability, he's got a little regen core. Taking a page from my book last season with Slowking and Ho again. He's got obviously big physical threats, and Terra King Gambit being one of the best Terra captains allowed in the format. Over upon Cornerstone. You look at his team though; it's very physically heavy as well. His only special hitters are Hatterene, Slowking Galler, and Special Ho. If you're running that, but you really want to take advantage of that nice Sacred Fire signature ability, signature move. I'm tweaking right now. But yeah, no, I don't know if you guys want to add anything to Ducky's team or whatever, but
Yeah, the main Hunter covered most things, but Hatterene being your strongest special breaker is just not a great thing. Um, Considering Hatterene really only has like the niche trick room use. So in weeks where trick room just really doesn't look that good, you won't be seeing too much value out of Hatterene unless you're like a bulky set, which in that case you won't be breaking anyway. So a lot of teams will be able to stop you with just physical bulk. Although it is going to be hard to try to physical like wall out a Mamo, Gapdos, Overpump Corner, Gambit, and then also Ho-Oh. But there definitely will be weeks where not having a real special breaker is going to come back to bite Ducky. Um, we also think that uh, King Gambit as it is a really good Terra Captain, but in terms of relative to the meta, it has fallen off a decent bit recently compared to what it was beforehand. Um, Still really strong, Terracat, but at round 2, there definitely could have been a better pick, as I think only Tusk and Enam. Oh, and Urshi Single. Those were the only 3 captains picked at this point. So there's a whole bunch of things you get to pick. There's Raging Bolt on the board, there's Zarude on the board, Mew on the board, the Ogre's on the board. There's a whole lot of Terra Captains that you could pick that I think would have fit better than King Gambit. Um, that was really my thing. I'm kind of a King Gambit hater, for the most part. Anything you want to add, Sage?
No, I agree with that for sure. I think Ducky has a solid team, as I've said with everybody. Like this is a very solid season overall. I think the main things are the rock weakness, and then there's not many special breakers on this team. I mean, you have like Hatterene, essentially, like you have a special Rotom Wash, but it's not really a breaker. Ho-Ho can be like a calm mindset, I guess, or it can be Specs, but I don't ever see Specs Ho-Ho over like Bandit. So there's not a lot of special attack here. It's pretty rock weak. And I'm just not a fan of a couple of the mons in general. I don't like Psych, and I don't really like Rotomoss or Hat that much. But in general, it's a solid squad. I do think that Terra Gamut's fallen off a cliff like super hard. But he still has a really solid Uber and a great draft around it. But like I said, it's just really stiff this season.
Yeah, for sure. But like again, this is it's really hard to pick like the tiny things, especially like, trying to like pinch out things for like downsides to teams. Whereas normally teams like this, oh my god, you have Ho-Oh and King, Regen Core, Terra Gambit, what?
Yeah,
Like
we're nitpicking
super,
at this point. Like we
yeah,
have to
super
nitpick
strong top 4 as well. By the way, one of the one top, I'd say top 3, top 4 in the league. Like
for sure.
Ho-Oh, King, Regen
Crazy.
Core, Terra Gambit. Although it has fallen off, it is still a really strong Terra Captain. And Overpawn Cornerstone isn't crazy top 4, but unfortunately it does fall off just like Gambit did after that. Um, by this point we're going in circles on Ducky. So we will move on to our next guy, which will be Kais. You want
Yeah.
to take us away, Sage?
Yeah, I'll talk about Kais. So I think Kais has a really great team as well. Kais is another one of those cases where his top 4 is fucking immaculate, dude. He has Dialga, Iron Valiant, Mew with Terra, Meowscarada, Blastoise, Bronzong, Houndstone, Muck, Blaziken, and Hippowdon. And like just straight up, dude, Dialga, Val, Mew, and Meowscarada is just absolutely insane. Um, I think Dialga last pick in the Ubers round is just great. I think he could easily slot into like the top 7 or 8 Ubers, and this is like the 14th pick. It's somewhere around there. Like it's definitely top 10. It's a very solid mon. Its stats are crazy. It can be Scarf, it can be Specs, it can be utility. A lot of stuff this mon can do. Val's just the best mon in the base format. Pulse band, the Speeds band. It's Val. He's the guy. He's the main guy. Terra Mew is a great Terra captain. I think it's a steal at 20. It's one of my favorite captains. I think again Meow, just the 120 speed tier. It's one of the protein trio. Just a great mon in general. I think toys here for hazard removal is really nice. Then we get into the mods that I'm a little iffy on. Blaze that late, I could see. You have points left over. You get the best mod available. I have no issue with that. I don't think Zong was needed a ton. I guess it is his only ground immunity, so it makes sense in that regard. But you probably could have went with like, no Zong, no Muck, no Houndstone, no Hippowdon, and got a better ground immunity. Um, just because I don't think I ever see Hippowdon like Houndstone tearing here with Mew being around. So it's probably not going to be used a lot. I mean, maybe like a fluffy set with Will-O-Wisp comes 1 week to like take care of a physical threat because it does have its niche use cases. Don't get me wrong. Muck for ground up poison and being a special wall has its niche use cases as well. I think the biggest pick that didn't make a ton of sense definitely was Bronzong. probably would have got another ground immunity, like I said. But in general, at this point, we're just nitpicking. This team's really good. I'm actually a pretty big fan of it. I love the top five, and I'm a big Blaziken fan. It's fallen off a cliff this gen, but I still have a lot of fun with it. And Terramu's great. That's really all I have to say. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
I mean, you know how much I love Blaziken. I had it last season. Could not say enough good things with that mon. But I think for the most part, it's just the fact that like Bronzong, Houndstone, Muck, and then Hippo just don't make the greatest sense. Hippo is really, I'm gonna be honest, a bad ground type. It is not a good ground type. Um, it is so high because it enables stuff like Terra, Extra Drill, or other sand mons that benefit from sand. So you can't have it be too low. Um, like Bronzong, it's just not going to be as good as Dialga as a steel type most weeks. Like it does resist fairy, but so does Dialga. This Dialga is so bulky, it is resisting fairy. It essentially. Um, but yeah, I think like a better ground immunity over Bronzong, and then mixing up like Houndstone, Muck, and Hippo, as Muck won't come that much. As just not that great of a mon. Houndstone won't come that much, and then neither will Hippo. It's relatively going to be the same Dialga to Blastoise, and then Blaziken, with maybe seeing Bronzong instead of Blastoise in weeks where he doesn't need the hazard removal. I think he just struggles with having a few too many low point mons that won't be as beneficial as getting rid of them and getting some better bonds to fill those roles. But I think that's all for Kais. We will move on to our next guy, who will be Mr. Rain. So Rain's team is very good. He has Palkia Origin, which is like top two Uber probably. In my opinion, I think it's the second best. Terra Torrent is unreal. Top three Terra Captain, I'd say. Ape is really good. It punishes momentum heavy teams. You can't just fire off U-turns and Volt Switches all you want. Because if you hit like two of them into Annihilate, all of a sudden he has a 150 base power move, which is just insane. Punishes stuff like that, which this team does like. It likes punishing momentum because it wants to have its hard hitters like Landorus, like Palkia, like Terra Torrent in on Mons and be like, yeah, you can click U-turn, but if I swap, you're gonna get punished. So it's like a little bit mind games on that. Jirachi's a fantastic steal. Um, T-Tears are really, really good. Dark type. It's super bulky. Spinef T-Tear will take hits from Goldango and make it rain. So, like it is nothing. He will shrug it off. Even though he's weak to it, this mon is not real. Um, Tentacruel I think could have been a better pick. I think could have got a better poison type, and like if you're relying on Tentacruel as your main removal, at that point just like commit to no removal. Um you're gonna be tearing Torrent out of flying most weeks, and he has regen, so he doesn't care about boots too much. Um, the only real mon that cares about hazards fully is like the ape switching in and out. So I think at that point you just got to commit. I'm not getting hazard removal, or you have to go and you have to go up in the tier list if there's an available remover up top that's more consistent than Tentacruel, and then get a better poison type to fill your team out. Overpawn Wellspring was a great late round pickup for him though. It filled out a nice speed tier. And added some honestly some pretty needed physical um pressure. And then you running it with Regius and Smeargle isn't the greatest, but you have 8 points left. What are you really gonna get to fill out the last two? I think it's a fantastic team centered around two great top picks. But I would have liked to see like Tentacruel upgraded a bit. Um, like get rid of Regice Smeargle, get like a 1 point into the Smeargle. You can drop down Regice a couple points, or even just take Terra away from it. Then you could upgrade Tentacruel to like a 12 or 13 pointer, which would be I think more beneficial to the team because he doesn't care about hazards too much, and that was Tentacruel's main role when you drafted, I believe. If you want to add anything onto that, Sage.
No, I agree. I like Rain's team. I really do. It was like a struggle for me not to put Rain's team higher. I was trying to be objective. Rain's a good friend, which a lot of these people are. This is probably the most friends I've ever had in one season of a league at the same time. So it's really fun. I think the Rain has a great team. Palkia Origin is top 4 Uber in my opinion. Torn's top 2 or 3 Terra Captain, probably top 2. Like Zarude and Torn are probably just the best objectively. Annihilate's good, Lando's good. I don't know Annihilate's role here other than Breaker, which makes it a little odd. Seems like it's going to love Scarf a lot, amongst some other things, have some issues. Um, there's not a lot of hazards on Rain's side to block. I mean, he can get rocks up with T-Tar or Lando. But using Ape to block just for stealth rocks sometimes might not be the best situation. Like you may want to be a more offensive set, especially because on the physical side, it's really either going to be Ape or the ogre breaking most of the time. T-Tar is a little slow for that. You like to have like a bulkier T-Tar set most of the time. Having Jirachi with Healing Wish support into Annihilate's huge though because of Rage Fist. That's like super awesome synergy. I don't know if Rain was thinking about that when he drafted it, but I'm a fan. I don't like the bottom two is like my main thing. I'm not a big fan of Regice or Smeargle. And I mean, I love Regice. Like I think it's an awesome Pokemon, but I just don't really think it's good in Draft League. I don't think Smeargle's gonna ever come or do anything. And I used to be a Tinta fan, but as time goes on, I'm falling out of love with it. I just don't ever see a world where this Tentacruel comes over T-Tar as a special wall, and I don't see a world where it ever comes over Ogerpon as a bulky water. Like you would rather slap HP into Ogerpon and be more offensive than bring Tentacruel to just sit on something and do nothing in return. That's really my main concerns with the team, and then that's not mentioning the fact that you have Palkia Origin that has like 1 million BST. So, but yeah, that's it for me on that team.
I think we're good to move on to our next one, and we will be bringing our special guest back for this one. If you want to unmute and jump back, as we got Bope coming in at number 7.
So, unfortunately, Boat is going to be dropping out of the league due to personal reasons. But so hey, if anyone that isn't in EBA watching wants to be joining up the required league, hit up Sin and Sage on Discord. Maybe that's probably still open. I don't know. Hey, you'll be taking over a team with the Pokemon version of Nuke.
Also,
Having
I like that if the spot isn't open, we always love having replacements in the league, and just people in the league to boost the community as well. If you are interested, then just like comment on this and say, "Yo, Smelly Sin, drop the server link," something like that. We'll get you in there. You can be replacement interest, be up for grabs if someone drops, or if you just wanna somewhere to chill, there's that too.
Yeah, so looking at Bope's team here, he's obviously got the nukes of World War II made into a Pokemon. He's got Deoxys Attack. He's got that 180 physical and special absolute slapping demon. He'll pull up to your house, slap you, and then you can't do nothing about it. Like, it happens, right? He's got that big 150 speed tier. Obviously, picks up Sneasel round 2. So now you don't really know. Is he going to slap you physically or is he going to slap you specially? He can do both, right? Samrod, obviously, great pick. He's got that spikes, Then he picked up Ogerpon Teal round 4 Terra. Obviously, a great Terra Captain in the high Terra format. There were definitely some, I think, personally, in my opinion, some better options out there at the time. But, can't go wrong with Ogerpon like a Terra, right? You get that speed boost, plus this one can hold the item. Corv at round 5. Everyone likes to think that Corv is a great mon for removal. I personally think it's a little overrated in Gen 9. But, it's always got that coveted defog. It's fat. You can always trust it to live a hit. Then you got Indeedee for that Psychic Terrain, protecting priority moves on those 20 defense docs attack, pretty much guaranteeing that you're going to be outspeeding 3/4 of the things, if not everything, in this entire format. The only thing you ain't outspeeding is a Regieleki. That's it. You ain't outspeeding that. Or like Scarf, I don't know, Dragapult or whatever, something like that. Unless you know Scarf yourself. Then he went and picked up Arcaludon in round 7, It's like a big dragon type, got that steel. Get another steel type. And the rest, Mimikyu, Great Fairy, Terra Charizard is honestly just there. And Piloswine, can't go wrong with Piloswine, It's thick, it's fat. You get an Eviolite on there, it's even thicker, it's even fatter, right? I mean, looking at it, I definitely think that if I had to change anything, I think you scrap the Indeedee, you scrap the Charizard, you can even scrap the Piloswine. If you really wanted to, you could scrap the Arch and just kind of rebuild that bottom 5. Your top 6 is really good. In fact, your top 3 is probably one of the scariest top 3s in the league. You get Deoxys Attack, Sneasler, and Samurott. Like that's a really scary top 3. and add Taro Grapon on there too. It's a really good team. It's just I like you can tell we're just nitpicking at this because all these teams there's not a bad team in this entire format. There's not a single bad team. I don't know if I want to add something to this.
Yeah. My main things with Bope's team are he you'll really want Samurott H for spike stacking to get rid of sashes or to wear down Monzak, the very few that could check a Deoxys attack. Um, and even Sneasler for that matter, opening up like a White Herb endgame or an Air Balloon, something like that, enabling Ogerpon. So he really likes Samurott spikes, and they do fit his team very well. But then he has the problem of only having Corviknight for removal. So Corviknight will have to defog those spikes away. If you invest in a good spinner, if you get rid of like Terra Charizard, get rid of Mimikyu, give it an arch, invest in a spinner. There aren't going to be that many left, but even a lower tier spinner will be nice for those hazard heavy weeks where they want hazards, but so do you. Being able to have your Samurott set them freely and not have to worry with defog. Not the biggest fan of Sandy Shocks as a ground type. I think there were a lot of ground types you could have gone over Sandy Shocks at this point that you would see more value out of. As I think it's kind of a jack of all trades, master at none type thing. It's got a relatively solid speed tier, can be decent offensive. He's got some good utility aspects to him, but he won't be as solid as just a better ground type. Um, I think you could invest in another electric type that likes pivoting on voltage more, opening up those Deoxys openings, getting Overpon in more, and just trying to blow stuff up. Enabling those two Mons is really what this team has done pretty well, with Indeedee stopping the Prio, Samurott H for hazard sacking, and Sneasler for just another offensive pressuring Mon. But I think Corviknight there kind of hinders the enabling that Samurott does, and I think you could definitely see some changes to help improve that a little bit. If you want to add anything, Sage, that's all I got.
Yeah, I think my main concerns with the team, I think it's really solid for sure. I'm actually not a big fan of drafting Psychic Terrain with Deoxys. It stops priority, but I don't even think it's necessary. You get Deoxys in clean on a Mon that doesn't have priority, you attack, whatever switches in is going to die, or whatever's in front of you is going to die. And if they bring a priority Mon, you pivot around, and I think that's a main reason why he kind of went bulkier and drafted this Corviknight, or at least he started to go bulkier and drafted this Corviknight. Didn't go much past that. But I just think Indeedee's probably never going to come. I don't think it's really necessary with Dio attack if you play it well, and Bolt, is a caliber player. Like he's a caliber player that could have played it better. I really wish he could have finished out the season, but we understand IRL happens. Wish him the best. But other than that, it's a really solid team. I think that he kind of struggled to break, especially outside of the O attack. You have the Archaludon, but it's probably not going to come a lot of weeks. Looking at this team comp and just in general, it's not the fastest mon, and it's just not the greatest mon either, in my opinion. Um, I think going like something a better special breaker over Ndidi and Archaludon could have been great. That gives you 20 points. You also could have upgraded the Charizard to something better. And those are really solid changes you could have made, in my opinion. But overall, really solid team.
Yeah, best wishes to both, by the way. Hope everything goes well for him.
For
Hope
sure.
all is best, and hopefully he could return in a future season. As we love Bope, he's a great
Yeah.
guy, great for, super
Both's
cool dude
always
to
welcome.
talk to. We will always welcome back with open arms. We are wishing him the best. Now moving into our number 6 ranking. I'm getting lost in the sauce right now. Number 6, we have Mr. Gabe. Um, so Gabe's team is really strong. At the top part of it. Guillotine Origins a really strong Uber. We said Diet Tight use it fantastically. Full glaze, by the way. In BBL, it's really a you would think it was like a more of a one-trick pony being item locked, but it is able to be defensive. It is able to be offensive physically or especially. It can be setup sets. There's so much guillotine it can do, and it is so threatening with what it does with those super strong Dracos or Shatter Balls from the defensive sets from the boost, or being offensive with Unreal Bulk. Um, and then you go into a mon like Terapagos, um, which is just unreal. Sniped the shit out of me with this, by the way. Um, but Terapagos is an unreal mon, one of the best spinners in the league, or in the format. It is the best mon at stopping setup. You know, this mon can take a +3 life orb, adamant dragon ascend from Rayquaza without being full bulk. This thing never dies. Moth, I think it's a little bit of a fraud. It is a really strong mon, but I don't think you get what you want out of Moth whenever you draft it. Boulder's an unreal Terra Captain. We saw John Jr. use it really well in BBL. 124 speed is just so good. Being able to run banded, outspeeding everything. Having the booster SD sets to get above a majority of the Scarfers is super beneficial. There's so many strong Terra types, so you just double up on rock. You go fighting, get the close combat boost. You can go ground to get the EQ boost and spam banded EQs into a ground weak team. There's just so much Boulder can do that you will never have a week where Boulder can't do something. Weezing G some pretty good roll compression. A little bit of an early Weezing G, I think, but it does fit the team fairly well. And I think he will get his value out of it. Swampert is a pretty good mon. I really like Swampert as a water and as a ground type. Another mon that's was pretty good roll compression for him. Spending quite a bit for his top mons. He needed to make up some roles in the next few. Iron Hands is a demon. And really the last real mon on his draft is Shame, which isn't unreal. Grass type and is super bulky. Mythicals never die in one hit. It is unreal. Fortress is a decent spinner. But then Mabosif, Diplo, and Nacli aren't that great. I would have rather see him not draft Nacli or Terra Diplin, increase Mabosif to like a 7 pointer, maybe, or even decrease Mabosif down to a low point one and then increase the Fortress up and get a better mon up top to make his team really 8 deep, because right now it's only 7 deep with Fortress maybe having a week or two where it comes. But Fortress really isn't that good of a mon, so I don't see it coming more than like 2-3 weeks all season. Um, but like he has a super scary top team. I don't think if he fixes the abomination that happened at the bottom of his team with Fortress down, I think he would be one of the top teams in the league. Anything you want to add, Sage?
No, I completely agree. I was struggling with not putting Gabe higher because I really like his like top four mons. I don't mind Weezing G either. He was gonna get Azu, and I snapped that. And shout out me. Swampert and hands. You know, grabbing hands round what freaking 6 is insane, or 7, right? That's just
Essentially
nuts.
six with the Uber.
Yeah, that's just nuts. Grabbing hands around 7 or 6, either way. The core of Terapagos and hands is just so I love it. It's awesome. I'm not the biggest Moth fan, but I think that this team did need another special breaker. So makes sense. Terra Boulder's a menace. I'm not a big fan of Giratina O. I really want to draft Giratina as well, but I probably would have went with the other form, the bulkier form. I think it's the better form. I don't think having to hold the orb helps this mon at all. For the 20 extra, attack or whatever, I think being bulkier and being able to hold the item is better overall. But still, Jiro is not a bad Uber. Don't get me wrong. It goes really well with Rapagos and hands. This core is just really crazy. Like you said, the bottom few mons are just bad in my opinion. I don't like Fortress, don't like Mabo, don't like Diplin, and then don't like Nacli. Obviously, it's not a real Pokemon. He could drop like all those mods and maybe even Shaman and get something a lot better for sure. Maybe even look into a trade for a different fairy, get rid of Weezing. I probably wouldn't. Weezing's fine in my opinion. But overall, super solid team. I love Terapagos and Hands together. This is one of my favorite teams for sure.
Yeah, I think if he made the change to the bottom of the team, this would be like top 3 team in the league. It was hard to put him as low as we did, considering he had a really strong top mons. But when you have a 6 deep team with Shaman being a part-time worker, it's gonna be pretty easy to prep in this team most weeks. I feel, as you will know before the game, essentially what team is coming, barring like, oh, it could be Swampert instead of Hands or something like small like that. Whereas Giratina, Trap, Boulder, blank and blank are coming. This mon is up in the air. I think making his team a little deeper could be useful, but isn't super needed. I think really just getting rid of the Mabosif, Diplomatically, and improving that slot is really all the team needs.
Right. Yeah, for
Now
sure.
moving on to our next team, we got the bum himself,
Yep,
Mr.
it is
Hearth.
Hearth. And I think Hearth has a really good team. He's a little bummed about being fifth place, but I think being fifth place is really solid. I mean, he has Zamazenta, Iron Treads, Pecharunt, Roaring Moon, Roaring Mid, more like Primarina, Rotom Heat, Zoroark, Hisui, Snorlax, Chestnut, Necro with Terra and Dusclops. I think Necro with Terra is amazing, considering he got it the last round of the draft. Essentially, Dusclops isn't a real Pokemon. Snorlax, I really love a lot in Ubers. That was something falling off my desk. Ignore that. Snorlax, I really like a lot in Ubers. I think the Zama is really strong Uber. I don't think it's a top 4 Uber, but it's still really solid. Treads is obviously good utility. It could be offensive, it can be defenses. I don't mind Treads. Grabbing a steal early with Zama. Taking care of fairies, taking care of psychics, fair enough. Taking care of flyings, basically pairs really well. Pecha's literally the best physical wall in the game. I don't really think it's debatable. I'm not a big fan of Moon. I'm at all. I think he probably could have went with another physical breaker here, or honestly, probably could have went with a real fast special breaker. Because your main special breaker is going to be Primarina, who has a really low speed tier. I guess you can kind of consider Zoro a breaker, but not as much. I think a faster special breaker could have made a lot of sense with that pick. Rotom Heat isn't a Pokemon I'm the biggest fan of. I'm just not a big fan of the Rotoms in general for the most part. But overall, it actually kind of does go with the team. It's kind of the same with the Moon. Moon's not awful here. I think that could have been a better pick, but it's still solid. I think Zoroark's actually goes pretty well with this team, even though it's not something I would normally draft. I'm not the biggest fan of Prem as my fairy, but this team needed a fairy. It fits pretty well. I think that's the big thing about this team. A lot of its mons I wouldn't normally draft. I would draft like Petrarunt and Lax. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's mons on this team that I really enjoy, but I do think that there's a lot of synergy here. I really do. That's why we're in the top 5. I think this is a really solid team. I definitely think there's some improvements that could be made, but overall, Terra Necro, Zama, Treads, Pecha, Primarina, like this is a super solid core of Pokemon. That's all I have to say. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think if we were ranking this, we kind of did this a bit when we were first ranking. We were looking like more individual mon versus individual mon and comparing. Um,
Yeah,
and then we decided not to waffle, and we looked at the synergies more. If we were doing just mon on mon, Hearths would definitely be probably like one of the tier list shifts down in the 8 to 10 range. As he doesn't have the greatest standalone mons, but he does have really good synergy. Like Lax Pecharunt is an unreal defensive core. Um,
facts.
Treads helps out a lot with neither of them really wanting to run boots. They're gonna want to run like Pecharunt wants Colbur a lot to let it honestly 1v1 a lot of dark types with Malignant Chain and recovering. Um, so
Sweetness policy too.
Treads being able to get rid of the spikes, let Pecharunt pivot in as much as it wants, let Snorlax pivot in, get rid of rocks and let Heaton get in and out without having to run boots. I think it does mesh really well with each other, but I think he does lack a bit of just like superstar power, as if you want to say. Like he doesn't have the greatest standalone mons, which isn't the biggest thing, but you do need a mon that will be able to steal a game, and he really only has Zom and Terra Necro for that. And those two are gonna get prepped to shit. Like you need another mon that can steal it. And I think a lot of the higher teams really have that, where they have like 2 Unreal Mons at doing that, but then they have like 1 or 2 that's like, this mon will be able to do it a decent bit of the time. It won't be a mon you necessarily prepped for, like you will be prepping for a Calm Mind Necrozma, like you will be prepping for a DD Necrozma. It'll be like a thing that slides on the radar that I think Hearth's team could really use to benefit the end game part of this team.
Right, and like there's Moon, and like on paper, Moon does that, but I can't remember the last time I saw Roaring Moon sweep a team. It just doesn't happen.
Doesn't have the bulk. Mine is the
Yeah,
issue. Necro, it DD has fallen off a lot, but Necro is one of the mons that still runs it because it's so bulky. Um, its ability is unreal. You're weak to a move, but you're not actually weak to it. And then you have Morning Sun recovery, so you can run like a DD Morning Sun 2 move set with like Terra Blast, Photon Geyser, and you can pretty much 6-0 teams off lead. Um, really good team. Doesn't have the best standalone mons, which is really what's taking it down a bit. Great synergies though. Team meshes really well with each other, but could be
yeah,
a better in
it,
its solo portions.
yeah. Truthfully, Hearth might have the best synergy of any team in the league.
Oh, for sure. But moving on to number 4 now. I'm a goof. One sec. Number 4 we have Phoenix. So Phoenix was a team that we were debating between Hearth or Phoenix for 4 and 5 for the longest time, and we were also debating Phoenix going up a little higher, but we left it 4 because he has some unreal mons. So Galeo's great. Terra Tusk is really strong. Terra Captain. Darkrai's unreal. Ozzy's a super good water and a super good fairy mon. Zapdos is a good bulky mon. Can also be offensive. Was a nice piece. Kyurem I don't think is the greatest, but it is there. Gengar isn't the greatest this gen. Arboliva isn't the greatest. You're not going to be tearing Arbo over Great Tusk 90% of the time. We might see one game where Terra Arbor comes, but 7 of the 8 will be Terra Tusk. Overpower and Harflame isn't bad. It's a decent mon in this team isn't another like physical breaker. And the Masquerain is not a real mon. But this is a team where I would have liked to see more synergy. If we saw a synergy like Hearth had, this team would definitely be up there. As Solgaleo, Great Tusk is an unreal top 2. And then having Darkrai and Azure to round off the top 4 is unreal. If it's a lot, he has a little bit of a weakness with not having good prio. Um, with Azu being the only real prio, won't matter too much of the season, but there will definitely be games where this team specifically wants more prio, with you really having to rely on Darkrai for the great speed tiers. Gengar and Ogre Punch aren't consistent enough to be brought every week over some of the other mons on the team. So I think that's where the team's gonna struggle the most. Um, but I think he did a really good job with the top part of the team, but he could have rounded at the bottom half a little better than he did. Anything you want to add?
Essentially it. I completely agree. I think Phoenix is in contention for the best like top 5 in the league. Kyurem, not the biggest fan, but it can do something. Like I'm not gonna act like Kyurem or Gengar can't do something. I
No,
think
super
yeah,
bad. Make them
I
on
think
point.
I think if you drop them like Arbo and Mask, you could probably get something better. But in general, I think it's fine as it is for the most part. I definitely agree with you about Arbo. Arbo's probably never coming. I'm not the biggest Ogerpon Heat fan. I don't know why I said Heat like Rotom Heat. Ogerpon Hearthflame fan. But I think it actually kind of works here in an odd way. I don't know what it is. It's just not terrible on this team. But in general, the top 5, man, is just insane. Solg, Great Tusk, Darkrai, Azumarill, and Zapdos is just really nice. And Terra Tusk is somebody who is really climbing the ranks in terms of Terra captains. Like if we do another high tier season of Gen 9, you could probably expect this guy to be higher than 20. Depending on how this season goes, but with how I've been seeing it do in other leagues, it's getting up there. I don't think it's a Zarude or a Torn, but it's definitely really solid.
For sure. I think one thing I forgot to mention is this team lacks some hazard setting outside of Tusk, which will force Tusk into a more defensive rock setter role
Yeah.
in quite a few weeks, which with Terry you don't want to do that. Base Tusk, you're fine with it being a defensive mon with having its offensive weeks, but with Terra it's an offensive mon with some defensive weeks, not the other way around, which fortunately this team only has Ogrepon spikes. Solgaleo might have rocks, but you're gonna be running not rock Solgaleo most of the time. Um, so that just it forces a Great Tusk to have rocks in the matchups where you really do want it. Um, so I think
For
having
sure.
getting rid of Kurum and Gengar and Masquerade and getting another rock setter, maybe a spike setter and then another rapid spinner to take that requirement off of Tusk 2 would be a really big advantage to the team and would probably push it into the top 3.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. But with that, I think we can move into the next guy who is actually going to be Hunter, our special guest today.
But fun.
I think I think Hunter's team is definitely really solid. The top four might be the best in the league. Like we just mentioned that I think Phoenix has a great top five. Gabe's top five is insane if you include Iron Hands instead of Moth. Kais has a really good top four. Um, but like Hunters is actually insane. Palkia, Tinglu, Goldango, and Raging Bolt. You have the hazards from Tinglu, the spin blocking and gold, and just the type chart works out pretty well with those guys. And if there is ever a hole in the type chart and you need a mon to patch up any hole, it's literally Tinglu. Tinglu can check mons that it is 2 times weak to. Like you can hit this mon with a super effective move and it won't take 50. It's just insane. Bolt's like right there with it with Terra. This mod's unbreakable. And it has so much offensive pressure. The big thing with Hunter's team is it's very solid. Those mods are insane. I'm actually a decent fan of Lycanrod Dusk in draft. But the bottom gets a little iffy. I like Molt and I like Decidueye. I'm not the biggest fan of Lug, not the biggest fan of Weave either. But Weave's a real Pokemon. Like Weave can do some stuff, man. It's your 120 speed tier. It's got some priority. It's got a great offensive typing, so it's not like it's a bad Pokemon. But overall, I mean, I rank this team so high just because of that top four being so insane, and then you have other breaking options in Weave, Lycanroc, and even Moltres as 120 special attack. Like you can't sleep on Moltres offensively. If you ride off Moltres and don't prep for it or prep for a more defensive set, it can definitely burn you. The Decidueye is kind of the same way too. Like an SD Poltergeist Decidueye set can really cook you if you're not careful about it. And I do actually think I'm like a big lug hater, but I think it's one of the best like under 5 point mons. So it definitely it adds something to the team. It gives you the option of having removal, even though you're probably not going to bring it. This team doesn't really give a shit about rocks that much, in my opinion. Anyways, like Tinglu's one of the it's so fat. Who cares? Polkia loves Choice Scarf. Who cares? Gold resisted. Raging Bolt. It has Terra. If it cares that much about rocks, it can Terra into a resisting type or whatever. I mean, it's going to be perfectly fine anyways. It's a fat bitch. I think this team definitely is really really solid. The only mon that I don't love outright, I don't think belongs on the team at all, is Regieleki. But spoiler for the future, there are some changes coming in the Hunters draft that definitely bumps him up. Like he might even be like a top one team soon. So, do you have anything that you want to add, Sim?
Um, yeah, I think that the top 4 is really what made me rank him so high. I think Lucky Down is a kind of fake. Weavile is at least there for speed turn, and Moltres is pretty solid, but Lucky, Weavile, Avlug, and Decidueye aren't the greatest mons ever. Um, but the team is 1 or 2 changes away from being the best team in the league. Get rid of Alecki, you get rid of Lug, you get rid of Decidueye, that frees up 21 points for you for 3 Mons. You smack a 1 pointer down to Decidueye, you have 20 points for 2 Mons. All of a sudden, you have a really good team. Tinglu is resisting any move that's not weak to. You hit this guy with a grass move, it's neutral. It's actually not super effective. Um, he takes 0 damage. He is a ground resist. It's the stupidest mon ever, and I think it patches a lot of the holes that this team has, as well as Raging Bolt, like Sage said, just not getting broken easily, and also patching the holes with Terra. So I think it's a really strong team. You will be seeing the top 4 every single game, but you should be seeing that. You should be seeing a good core every game with some support mons, which I think Hunter did really well with his team. I would have rather seen some better mons than Aleki, Avalugg, and Decidueye to round off the supporting roles.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And I
it's
think that's why Hunter snuck into the like top 3 for me, is because even though there's some fake Pokemon, they have roles. Like Avalugg has a role, the Decidueye has a role, Moltres has a role. Like a lot of the other teams have mons that I just don't think ever come ever. Like even with Hunter's team, even Aleki could come one week if there's not a good, like maybe a team doesn't have a ground type or it has
it
a
will
weak
not.
ground type.
Aleki is balls. Make it 1 point.
Hey,
Um,
okay. Look at an example. Look at Iona's team. Lucky could do something there. Probably, maybe. Because the
being
ground
a
type's
non-fan,
Donphan.
but
Donphan
anyway,
sucks.
it's still walling in Aleki. Uh,
It's gonna die, and then Lucky's gonna go crazy.
all right, moving on to number 2. We have the Gooner himself, Mr. Sage. Um, so Sage's team, he got Kieran White at pick 7, which is pretty crazy. Kieran White is top 3 Ubers. I'd say Tears Root is the best hair captain, and he got that at 7 or 8 in the second round, which is just stupid. He has 2 of the best mons in the format. For his top 2. Then he rounded off good with Lando T for a good ground type, a pretty solid physical wall when he needs it. Clefable for Fairy, and just wish passing. You can stop 1 Terrazood, but can you stop 2? Um, Cinderace is there as a really solid speed tier. It kind of scares away hazards. Thundy is one of those like sneaky setup mons where you're not gonna prep for a setup Thundy, but if you don't bring the right 6, a Nash Thundy will sweep you endgame. Metagross is super tough to break. If you give it AV, it is living a hit no matter what mon hits you. Keldeo is a really good mon. I would have liked to see him maybe Terra Keldeo. Any Keldeo truthers in the chat? Um, Keldeo is a super solid mon. Water fighting is really good. Stabs, we saw it with Urshifu Rapid. You got good prio with the Vacuum Wave and Aqua Jet if needed. And then Sableye is actually a pretty good low point mon. I know you have Willow, you have T Wave, Recover, you have Foul Play, Sableye can run that set every week and he will be able to do something in a game. Won't be super impactful, but it will do something. And then Caracal is a meme. Um, but I think he has a top 4 that is really distinguished in games, and you will see that top 4 pretty much every week. Then you have Cinder to round off against a speedier team, Thundy against a slower team with sweeping, Metagross against a more offensive team, Keldeo against a slower team. You can clearly tell that he has a good set foundation of 4 with some supporting mons mixed in. Although I think the one weakness of this team is not having any hazard removal with mons that like to pivot in and out, like Zarude, Clef, Kieran White, and Metagross. They all like to pivot around a decent bit. So I think Spikes could definitely hinder him, but it is a team that can definitely run uh, boot spam, and you have enough throughout the team to cover the what you'll lack in offense and defensive pressure with the boot spam. That's all I have to say about Sage team. If you want to add anything on,
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like my favorite team ever, but I am a pretty big fan of it. I actually want to rank myself, but I was gonna be 2 anyways, essentially. So I don't know where I would have put myself in actuality without removal. It's kind of hard, but in general, I definitely think I have a really strong core with Kieran White, Zarude, Lando T, and Clef. Like Sin mentioned, there is a plan behind it. Essentially, I have my big offensive mons, and anything that can check them, I have options to break them down. I have Cinderace's speed tier to U-turn around. Lando can U-turn around. Got Thundy to U-turn or Volt Switch. Got Flip Turn on Keldeo. Have a ton. Can U-turn on Zarude. And I have a ton of I have a ton of momentum. If you're going to be switching in, trying to check my walls, I'm going to be flipping around on you, essentially. And I do have a team that really can run boots. Like I don't have removal, but a lot of these mods run boots, no problem at all. That care about rocks. Like, there's no issue with me putting boots on as a root that's going to be a Terra type that needs it. There's no issue with me running boots Cinder. No issue with boots Thundy. Like, it's perfectly fine. That's essentially the plan of the team, though. It's the Rude and Kiram are obviously the win cons almost every week. Maybe like the odd Scarf Lando. And I just want to break down teams with momentum and hazards. I only have rocks. I don't have spikes. But if you look closely at my team, I have 3 different rock setters, and all 3 of them are weak to different types. So I'm guaranteed to have a rock setter that's going to work. No, they don't share any weaknesses. So that's a huge plus with this team for sure. And then Sableye and Dundee with the prankster support, I think is really good in Ubers. If I Will-O-Wisp or T-Wave or just taunt spam your best Pokemon, it's going to make your life a lot harder, essentially.
It also forces you into rough positions where you have Fundy in front of a Scarfer that's in a position where he could sweep an endgame, but all of a sudden, if he gets paired, he won't sweep the endgame, and it's puts you in a tough spot because if you swap out to a Mon, they're gonna get paired, and then they're gonna have to take a hit from Dundee because he will now be faster. And it's like, do you sack him on essentially, or do you let your Scarfer go down and then hope your team can carry? So Dundee and Sableye Prankster can force people into weird situations like that, especially with a lot of teams relying on an Uber. You get Dundee T in front of like Palkia Origin threatening a T wave, and then letting Kirim White outspeed. It's unreal. You essentially kill Palkia the moment you T wave it. In that situation. So it's just a really strong team with like supporting mons to help out the Kieran Zarude, which was the plan. Um, I think that's good for this part. We'll move on to the next one. Um, so with deducting number one, it's me. We'll let Sage talk about this, but quickly, like the way we did this, um, the rankings is me, Sage, Hearth, and Hunter. We all did a separate ranking without looking at each other's, and then we average out the scoring. Um, Now Hearth and Hunter did theirs way before. Me and Sage were a little delayed doing it. But when Hearth and Hunter were done, it was almost like fully locked that me and Sage were going to be 1 and 2. Normally we wouldn't rank ourselves, but not ranking a team ends up completely throwing the scaling out of whack. By giving a team the extra point, it could move it above a team that it is frankly just not better than. Due to that, so we wanted to rank ourselves in, so we just figured we put it. We were essentially guaranteed to be anyway. I don't know how the rankings would change. We might have seen Sage go to 1, me fall down to 2 or 3 around there, something like that. But we think it is still a solid list. We don't think it's too like biased or anything.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think we have solid teams. I think that drafting is probably my strong suit. So, um,
Don't
I'm
know, it's
happy
mine.
to
So
to be in the top two. No, I think you have a nasty team. And to be fair, I think you're just auto one because you have Lunala. Like Lunala is the most
that
broken
is pretty big boost.
Pokemon allowed. Like there's no competition. Lunala broken. Period.
Failed to
That's
pick
that's
9,
it.
by the way.
Yeah. Lunala is the best mon in the format, like by a lot. But other than that, I mean, you have a solid core. You have Garchomp, Quag. I say Quag, it's Quack. Crocodile, Klefki, Salamence, Weezing, Espeon, Skuntank, the GOAT, Arcanon Hisui, another GOAT, Munchlax, another GOAT, and then Jolteon, you stupid bitch. Uh, in general, I think the big meat and potatoes of this team is the fact that Lunala is essentially unkillable. It can win any 1v1 and it can run any set in the world, essentially. And then you have so many physical breakers. You actually have like a perfect win con for Lunala or a special mints almost every game because you're going to be breaking down those walls. Say they have like a really fat special steel type with fucking assault vest and it can take 2 Moongeist beams. And it's obviously going to resist those Lunala's psychic moves, and you would normally have to rely on Focus Blast. Well, you have a Garchomp, and you have a Quack, and you have a Crook, and you have these other mons that are going to weaken that steel type for Lunala to sweep in game. Lunala is obviously a great lead too. If you lead with Lunala and you break down all these Pokemon, it's going to make your physical walls have a free game. Um, on paper you have like a really physically dominant team, but like I said, Lunala can do a bulk of breaking, especially on its own. It's going to hit multiple Pokemon every game. It's just a given, and it's going to hit really hard. I think that Mint's mixed sets or like special sets look really good with your team too. I can see a lot of special mints this season. And I think that's perfectly fine because you mentioned it earlier. DD is not what it used to be. If you're running DD every week on a mon like Benson, you're just throwing essentially. And then you have Terra Espeon. I think you have the best dual Terra captains. Espeon, I mean, as Mintz in itself is a really good Terra captain, but Espeon's actually usable. I don't really know if any of the other teams have a second Terra captain that's that usable at all. I mean, the second best one is probably Vikavolt, and I would never tear Vikavolt over Urshifu single. I could see Espeon tearing 1 week if it's like just wins when call mine. And Espeon's like an underrated special mon too. You do have another special attacker here outside of the special mints. I'm not the biggest fan of Espeon or Jolteon, but they can do the job if they need to. Like I said with Regieleki, I think Regieleki's a bad Pokemon, but if you face a team that doesn't have a good ground type, and it doesn't have like a secondary ground electric resist, it's definitely possible you just kill that ground type and go stupid with Jolteon, you know? Like there's just weird cases where shit like that happens. And the defensive core is actually really nice, if you look at it, because Guntank, believe it or not, can 1v1 almost every physical mon, and it checks Ghost really well for Lunala, checks Darks really well for Lunala. You have Quack to check Darks, you have Croak to check Darks and Ghosts. You're like really covering Lunala's weakness as well. You have a support Klefki, which is awesome. You can spam T waves like we mentioned earlier. Prankster is really good in this format. You can get up spikes. You can be screens to like enable the setup on your team. Um, and then you have the underrated special goat Munchlax. Like nothing's killing this mon. Especially this mon beats Fluttermane. This mon beats Spectrier. This mon's that guy. Just in general, I do really like your team. The biggest hole I see in it is the physical thing. But like I said, you have Lunala to break, especially it can do it. You have Mints to run special a lot of weeks because you don't want to just focus on being physical. And then you have Espeon and Jolteon, they can do something. Like it's not like there's only one special mon on your team.
Yeah, my plan in the draft was a lot of immense. I was super set on it, so I was never drafting a Dragon Uber, even if it was like if Palkia Origin fell, I was always passing on for immense. Um, and then I really wanted Quaquaval as I really like the Mon. The first time I used it, I was a bot. Um, so I wanted to run it back, and they got sniped. But I didn't end up working out a trade for it. But it was a bundle deal, and I got Quack and Crook. So and then ended up giving me three great weaknesses in my first four picks. Two ground types. So the rest of the draft was kind of trying to fix that. And then after men's, I was like, we can force so much offensive pressure without being a super heavy offense team. Um, that it will be hard for like looking at Gabe's team to the left. Weezing G is the best physical wall there. Weezing G is not going to be able to stop Ment, Quack, and Garchomp if I decide to bring all three physical sweepers. If I end up playing him, like it's not going to be able to. Um, and then Skunk Tank is a super bulky bitch. I would like to turn all your attention to an image I will be putting up in a second. Um, and like Espeon, when I was looking, I really need a 110 speed tier. And I think Terra Espeon it just barely fit my budget. Um, but it fit it well enough that I feel like it will be able to come, and it fits my team fairly decently. Um, so if you turn your attention to this Cal, real quick, we can see a adamant banded hero Palafin will never OHKO a defensive Skunk Gang. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Um, And then Munchlax is shockingly bulky. Shout out King L5 by the way. Um, and then Jolteon it's a fake mon. I will 100% admit that. It is there for a speed tier. If I ever need the 130 to just barely creep over a mon. If I need to get above like Boulder or something like that, I have Jolteon there if needed. And I think Klefki screen support and T-wave support benefits my like, three Moxie sweepers fairly well, and then Garchomp. I think a lot of offense. It can overwhelm you, but then there's also Garchomp, Quack, Crook, and Mence can all be very strong defensive mons. I feel like it's a very shifty team. That fits me. And I think it goes pretty well together with like Sefky screens into like Quack isn't the bulkiest bitch, but with screens he will not be dying. And you have Roost, you have your encores, you have your flip turns, your spinning. It has the tools to um, enable other mons to fill roles that they aren't normally able to fill as great as other mons with the same typing or same like specific utility can.
Yeah, for sure. And then that wraps everything up. That's all the teams. Is there anything that you want to add?
I think that's good. We are. Let me get this out of the way. This is our final ranking here. Hunter, if you wanna, oh fuck, where's there you
What?
go. If you wanna come in, say your goodbyes with us. There's our final ranking. Presented to you by Sin, Sage, Hunter, and Hearth, with Hearth not being in call, but Hunter being his guest appearances. Um. Also, by the way, these have nothing to do with the players. Um. I felt like that wasn't obvious, but we did forget to say this is strictly team wise. I am sure teams fit Bope's team fits him better than it would fit me, and he would rank his higher. Gabe's team probably fits him better than it would fit me, so he would put his higher. It's all opinion based. None of it is set concrete. I have the best team in the league. I'm
No,
willing to
no.
defend anything like
The,
that.
the only thing that is set in concrete is that Santa has the best team because he has the broken Pokemon.
Very true.
Yeah.
Skunk Tank is
Yeah.
kind of broken. We should have made him at least 5 points this season. We did not learn.
That was yeah, and like Sage, the only reason he's the second team because he drafted Karkle round 10.
Exactly.
Like it was necessary pieces to be added into the teams.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
gonna be it for us today. I hope you guys enjoyed chilling with us for the last hour during the power rankings. Thank you to all of you who watched live. I don't throw many because this is super fucking late right now. But we still appreciate anyone who did. We appreciate anyone who watches it after the fact through the VOD. Um, Yeah, make sure to check out the all the coaches will be in the description to this video. I'll also put a server invite down there. So if any of you want to join, be possible replacement, or if you just want to chill out in the server, you'll be able to do that. But that's gonna be for me. If either of you guys want to say your goodbyes before we wrap it up.
Yeah. Peace, everybody. I appreciate everyone who watched, and I would say that we would do mid-season, but I can't promise that because these are hard to get together and do, and plus they are very long.
That
But
I will try my best to at least get a mid season one done during our week 4 watch party. I'll have one and I'll go through the changes. If Sage isn't there, we should at least have one, so you guys can look forward to that. But it
The exclusive
probably
guests will
won't
become
be
promoted.
probably won't be a three of us in call thing like today, as this is just super hard to schedule. This was
yeah,
planned to be almost a week ago, but I think just one thing comes up for someone and has to be moved back. All that it's tough to line 3 schedules.
yeah, and then there will be watch parties throughout the season, but those are a little easier because like I can do a watch party by myself and invite Hearth or Hunter or Sin can, like just depending on the situation. This was something since it's PRs, it's a one time thing. We wanted to get together and do it essentially.
Yep. There will be a weekly watch Brady Sunday for the games. I should be able to do all of them if they're not already done Sunday. I'll try to get them the Monday night, and then Sage will be there if he's around. Maybe Hearth or Hunter will join for a couple, but you can look forward to that. Every Sunday night there will be a stream going through all the battles, um, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
sir.
gonna be it for us today. We will see you all next time.